Hey folks, welcome to another edition of Fitness Friday Posi-TIPS with Rachelle. It's already February. I cannot believe it. This year is already off to a very quick start. And certainly in the month of January, I was very generous in terms of providing some insights and thoughts around just the importance of not being average. I mean, that was certainly something that I hit upon the last couple of episodes, and wanted to give you an example of that. I actually wrote myself a note to be sure to highlight this at the appropriate time. So here in Metro Detroit, on January 2nd of this year, Crain's Detroit Business is actually one of the leading business publications in the U.S. And so they actually had an article where they talked about 50-year-olds. So the title of the article was 50-year-old Franklin Athletic Club undergoes $4 million renovation as fitness flourishes. And so Franklin Athletic Club is one of our Metro Detroit clubs, higher end club, private club, and is certainly one that has been recognized on the club industry list, club industry 100, top 100 gyms, but there's a little caveat, and I wanted to make sure to include this here, as they've got specific verbiage that they use as they described a number of clubs here. It says top 100 caliber companies not on the list. And it reads, every year, several companies who deserve to be on the list decline to provide their information, and we are unable to secure accurate estimates from other sources, so they are left off the list. The following companies likely should be on the list, but are not for this reason. And Franklin Athletic Club is very often listed, and it's just, awesome to see one of our Metro Detroit clubs here. Actually, we got a couple there, but just wanted to highlight Franklin Athletic Club because, yeah, as the article stated, 50-year-old club. And I've been in there once, actually, here in Metro Detroit since I've lived here. But 50 years old, $4 million renovation. So also they've got an objective source saying, hey, they're one of the top, they deserve to be in the top 100, but they're not for this reason. But a 50-year-old facility not taking things for granted, not taking their members for granted, recognizing that the competitive landscape here in Metro Detroit and just the fitness industry in general has changed and continues to grow and become more competitive, more fragmented, as you've got a lot of boutique type of fitness facilities that are really flourishing now. So I just think that's a perfect example. It doesn't matter if you've been open for 4 weeks or if you've been open 40 years. It does not matter. It does not matter. Just always strive to be competitive. Like I said, don't be average. It's so important if you want to be and remain competitive and vibrant and flourishing in the years ahead. And next here, another point that I've certainly hit home last time, and just wanted to recap and reemphasize this point because, leadership development is what I do, something very passionate about. And so I just wanted to drive this point home one more time is as leaders, doesn't matter what type of leader your role is. You could be a trainer, you can be a manager, you can be a franchisee, you can be a corporate facility leader. It doesn't matter. So it's so important to recognize the importance of objectivity. The importance of objectivity, and also the importance of exposure, and making sure that you're well-rounded, you're well-versed, and you can understand just different in how the fitness industry, how things are changing, what are the trends. And so you've got to be exposed to that in order to be able to position yourself, your facility, perhaps even your chain of facilities effectively. So that's so important. But you've got to be objective. And as leaders, this is a big one. This is a big one because it doesn't matter what the source is, when you're looking at what the facility type is or name is. When you go to sources such as Indeed.com, Glassdoor.com, one word that you will just see repetitively across chains is that favoritism word. The favoritism word. This manager favored women. This manager favored men. This manager favored fit people. This manager did this. This manager did that. And so there's just always that favoritism word that gets thrown around in this industry, and quite frankly, all industries, because as human beings, part of our human nature is to have this bias or the ability to show favoritism. And so I just want to challenge you, as I myself am constantly challenged on this aspect of objectivity, remaining objective, and things, I'm constantly challenged. Yeah, you all see me here on Fitness Fridays, but you don't recognize how much I'm challenged in the in-between of these Fitness Fridays, because when I started doing these a few years ago, and yes, I do the Posi-TIPS, just the general inspirational Posi-TIPS on non-Fitness Fridays. I have different series from time to time, but I'm far more generous on Fitness Fridays, and actually I have folks that aren't in the fitness industry that tune into the fitness industry because there's a lot there that can be applied to various industries. And so I'm always, and I just, when I started out doing these, I just vowed to be, not commercial, where I'm constantly promoting myself and my services and my phone number and all of that. I don't do that because I just wanted to be in a position to be helpful to people. I mean, this is my Positive Tips are my professional public service. So I take it very seriously, but at the same time, I'm challenged to remain objective constantly because, this is obviously a platform where I've got to be objective and I've got to just, be fair, and that's so important, but I'm constantly challenged, just like you will be, just like you are constantly as leaders. And we have to work hard. We have to work hard to subdue our biases, to remain objective, to be fair. And you don't need to have a platform. You don't need to be speaking to various people in order to be able to take that essentially a leadership trait that is so important, the ability to be objective, take it seriously. It doesn't matter who your audience, what you're doing. Just do your best to remain objective and to be fair. And I'm constantly tested. And just give you, an example. Very, very, there was recently Detroit SHRM. I'm a former member of Detroit Society of HR Management. Got a news, the weekly e-newsletter last week, and I looked at it, and what had there was a link on it that said, they were looking at the Crane's Detroit Business, same publication I mentioned before. Accepting nominations for the 2019 Woman in HR, award. And I was sitting there thinking to myself, I said, you know what? And I clicked on it and I said, I know who would be perfect for this, perfect for me to nominate. And it would be Maureen Cisco, who's the HR director for the PF Michigan or Planet Fitness Michigan group. Does an exceptional job. And of course, I have a great understanding of HR, but also as a fitness enthusiast and Planet Fitness member who've been to a number of the gyms within that franchise group, I just recognize as an end user just what a fantastic job that group does in terms of their people and just the consistencies and some of the operational efficiencies and the teamwork and collaboration that I've experienced. But I had to I thought about it for about 60 seconds, and I had to make the decision to say, you know what, Rachelle, you can't do that. That's bias. That's favoritism. As much as I wanted to, I couldn't do it. So I'm constantly challenged. And even when I think about, Maureen Cisco and I think about going back to their grand opening for the Wayne, Michigan location, last year. And I remember I met several people, and then I met Karen, who's the general manager of the Westland, Michigan Planet Fitness, and had probably a good 6, 7, 8 minute conversation with her. And she was so enthusiastic and so positively passionate about that franchise group. And one thing that was certainly going through my mind is that, as this group continues to grow, perhaps, I don't even know, maybe they have, I don't know, but she needs to be in the pipeline for a future regional manager. Would be exceptional. And there's various, I could build a case of why that is, but been with them for a very long time, almost since the beginning, if I recall correctly, but just very passionate about Planet Fitness, about just the organization overall, her role as a leader, but more importantly, that loyalty aspect of being very loyal, very passionate about that particular franchise group, which would make her an exceptional regional manager down the road. And I'm thinking that, but I want to voice that, but I can't. I've got to be fair. I've got to be fair in these situations. And even Leo, you all have heard me mention charismatic Leo when I go back home to the Shreveport, Bossier City area in Louisiana, and I'm at those Planet Fitness locations, and even there, when I believe it was December 29th, it sure was, December 29th, Saturday morning, and I know I read this recap a couple weeks ago on the feedback I shared regarding those clubs, but he was filling in for somebody that wasn't even his club. He was filling in at 6 a.m. on a Saturday morning for someone else. I don't obviously know the details, but I know he's an employee of the Bossier Club, but he's at another club, and I could build a whole business case of why, fortunately he was front desk before, and now he's a shift leader, but I could build a case of why he needs to be an assistant manager at some point, sooner rather than later, would be an outstanding member of the leadership team, and that's what I do. I'm a leadership development, but I was able to assess those traits early on during my first visits after that Bossier City Club opened in June, but just to see a few months later him filling in on a Saturday morning at a club that wasn't his, with a great attitude, treating members just like he would at their own club, was just exceptional. But as much as I would love to write a letter to the Kansas/Louisiana Sutherland group in to address a letter to Belcher, Louisiana, where they're based. I couldn't do that, that's favoritism, that's bias, that's how I feel. But absolutely, I mean, I just can't do that. But that's certainly something, and that's why I like to share these traits and share these examples, just so you all can know. When you've got an employee that's willing to go to different clubs and fill in when you're short-handed, short-staffed. I mean, that is an incredibly loyal employee. It doesn't matter what type of facility it is. When you got somebody that's a team player like that, is willing to pitch in, and also have there's no difference in how they interact with people at their own club versus a club they may be filling in at temporarily. That is very tremendous leadership potential, and that's certainly something you need to be on the lookout for. You got people that are willing to go above and beyond like that. Those are your leaders. Those are your future leaders. So keep those folks in mind. But I'm constantly tested, and I just wanted to, there's so much I want to do that I can't do. And when I even think about doing it, and that's when I certainly, share those thoughts with you, just so you can see I empathize with what you're going through. There's going to be people that work for you, particularly those of you in leadership roles, where you're like, oh, this person is awesome. They're always on time. They never create any drama, just whatever, this and that. And then you've got the employees who always seem to be stirring up drama and creating strife and always late. Just address problems that need to be addressed, but also do your best, because that favoritism word not only gets thrown around a lot in the fitness industry, but just overall in the workplace. And that's something people don't want to feel like, they're left out, or they don't measure up, whatever the case may be. They're not favored. And so just keep that in mind. And so with that, folks, moving on quickly here, wanted to shift gears and make this more of a general fitness. I have the leadership development type of episodes, and I have more of the general fitness gym goer episodes, and this is intended to be one of those. And just wanted to share a few thoughts here around the topic of gym newbie no-nos. So here we are. We've got a number of folks who have these New Year's resolutions that they're going to do things differently. This is going to be their year of weight loss. This is going to be the year that they make things happen. And so, unfortunately, many of those people have already dropped off in their resolutions. They've given up on their resolutions. And that's why we say, to succeed in fitness, it needs to become a lifestyle and not an event. And so this has got to be day in, day out, year in, year out. It's just got to be something you're tremendously committed to in order to be successful. So there's certain things that I think gym newbies will be predisposed to doing, and I think these tips are just intended to help those folks, and they're great refreshers for those who've been in fitness facilities for a long time, because we're all humans, we're all going to make mistakes, we're all learning and growing, and this is certainly something that we can all appreciate regardless of our level of fitness and tenure in the fitness industry. And the first one is gym newbie no-nos. Don't sign up and not show up. I mean, research shows. And in December of 2017, I actually highlighted an article with a great statistic that 67% of people sign up for gym memberships and never show up. Once. I mean, obviously that was a national average in that study, but just wanted to really reemphasize that point. There's a lot of facilities and that are making great money off a lot of people that don't show up. And so I just challenge you to, if you really feel that you have zero level of commitment, I would challenge you to work on your commitment level, your determination, before you make that decision to sign up. I mean, don't succumb to peer pressure. Don't look at the latest ads on TV. Don't get inspired by looking at the front cover of Men's Health. Decide what you're really going to do, and knowing in your heart you're going to do. Be a person of integrity and do what you say you're going to do. If you sign up for a gym membership, show up. Second, expect instant results. And this is why a lot of people give up on their fitness journeys, and particularly those who perhaps are struggling with weight issues and struggle for a long time. They roll into the gym and expect the weight to start falling off in week one. And just quite frankly, I mean, that's just not going to take time. And those quote unquote situations and scenarios and programs where you're losing weight very quickly, research has shown that those results are, number one, highly atypical, but number two, highly atypical in terms of the ability for the results to actually last. So if you're losing 10 to 15 pounds a week, and again, you haven't had something like bariatric surgery or something like that, but that's a whole nother episode, then you got to realize that you've got to take it slowly, 1 to 2 pounds a week. I mean, that's what's recommended by a number of different sources, but just don't, I mean, you may want to jump on see the ad where you see that you can lose 10 to 15 pounds a week, and you may be jumping all over it, but then you're frustrated. You're mad at your trainer, you're mad at your group fitness instructor, you're mad at the fitness facility. I mean, people get mad at people for various reasons, so I just don't want you to set yourselves up for disappointment expecting instant results. Inside the fitness industry and outside of the fitness industry, just make a decision. You know, you got to expect anything worth having. It takes a long time. It takes work. It takes commitment. It takes determination. All right, so just don't expect the instant results, and then that way you won't be disappointed and throw in the towel for the 80th time in the last 20 years on your fitness journey. All right, I want you to be successful, but you got to be realistic with yourself and with other people. Perhaps if you're in a leadership role, just be as realistic as humanly possible. I mean, obviously none of us can predict the future, but just be realistic and set manageable, realistic expectations as you're dealing with people. Because if they're going and expecting the world to happen in the next 7 days, that's just not going to happen, and they're going to be in for a dramatic fall. And so we don't want that to happen to folks. Number 3, Gym Newbie No-No, don't compare and compete. And this is true inside and outside of the fitness industry, just human nature in general. Just this human nature wants to just look at the person next to you and say, what are they doing and how am I measuring up? And this is something that kills more fitness journeys, I would argue, than anything else. And when you take a step back and look at even the marketing brilliance of Crunch Fitness pioneering the no judgments philosophy, and obviously, you know, Planet Fitness coming along with their judgment-free zones. I mean, the marketing brilliance behind that is the fundamental insecurity that people have of feeling judged and feeling intimidated when they're going into fitness facilities. Absolute marketing brilliance, bar none. I will tell you that. And so just recognize. I mean, you may be walking into a gym for the very first time, and then all of a sudden, insecurity creeps in, and you're looking at the person next to you that's been running on the treadmill for 17 years, and you've been running on it for 3 days, and you're wondering why you're not measuring up. You're wondering why that person is more fit than you. Really, when you take a step back and just look at it from that perspective, being objective and saying, who am I comparing myself to? I mean, you can't compare your life journey to someone else's highlight reel. All right, that person has probably worked extremely hard all of those 17 years in order to be in that position. And so just don't go in, particularly as someone who just lacks experience and it's your first time in, and you're looking around at all the fit people, also not recognizing the hours and the months and the weeks and the years that they've put into their fitness journey, and you're just starting out. I mean, that's true with anything. I mean, in order to be solid and to be experienced and do well at something, it takes time. It takes practice, it takes repetition. So to be a newbie at anything, you can't expect a brand new driver who's just now taking his or her first driving education class to be the winner driver of the year award for their city. Right? It's going to take time. It's going to take experience. All of that. Same thing is true in fitness. So don't compare. Don't compete. Don't feel like, well, you know what? And even from a leadership perspective, you may hear me talk about, and you've heard me talk in past episodes about PF Michigan Group, okay? High-profile group, and I'm losing count here quickly, between 41, 43, 44 locations in Michigan and Ohio. And you may get inspired hearing me talk about them, and you think, well, I want to be the next PF Michigan Group where I am. And you're disgruntled and unhappy with the one gym you have. So that's why I'm saying you got to be realistic. You got to be realistic, but also recognize they started with one gym too. They had to start somewhere and grow and do well and just really excel and within the Planet Fitness model, franchise model. But they started somewhere, so you too got to start somewhere. So be patient with yourself. Understand your own strengths and weaknesses and what you bring to the table as a leader, even if it's a gym goer. Recognize. Okay, you may hate the treadmill, you may dread running. Just recognize, don't go in and compare yourself with other people. Be yourself, and that's my next point. Do not be inauthentic. So don't go in trying to be a copycat, trying to imitate everyone else you see, trying to fit in, trying to measure up, and it's your third day in the gym, and all of a sudden you're trying to be Mr. or Miss Fit, and it's just not working for you, and you're unhappy, and you're losing motivation, and you're becoming frustrated and resentful at the whole process, and you throw in the towel. All right, this whole scenario that just popped into my head that I just shared with you, that scenario happens over and over and over. All right, it's important to know what's important to you, what your own strengths and weaknesses are, and limitations, quite frankly, from a fitness perspective, and go from there. Go from there. All right, if you got bad knees, don't try to roll on a treadmill and hit 7.0 running. I mean, you're just going to have problems. You're going to injure yourself further. Just don't do that. Do what works for you. Don't feel like you got to go in and just be Mr. Misfit. Just be yourself, inside and outside of the fitness industry, and you will be successful. You will be very successful when you do that. Inside of the gym and outside of the gym. All right, so many people, even in the workplace, trying to keep up with their coworkers, trying to do this, trying to keep up with their best friend who just got a promotion, who's working 15, 16 hours a day. All right, and you just want to go home after your 8 or 9 hours and be done, but now all of a sudden you're working all these hours trying to keep up with somebody else. All right, just don't do that. We all deserve to be happy in life, but not being authentic is certainly not a way to get there. Finally, master body language. Study body language. If you're not well versed in this area in terms of interacting with people in fitness facilities, master body language. You gotta recognize what people are doing. What is their body language telling you? Because quite frankly, I think there's a segment of people, particularly gym newbies, who are going into facilities and ignoring body language, intentionally or even just unintentionally, and it's producing some results that are not favorable to that person's confidence or self-esteem or anything like that. So I think it's so important that we all recognize, particularly, you see someone with headphones on, see someone with earbuds in, you see someone with closed body language, you got to, approach with caution. Approach with caution and just recognize, is this a good time for me to approach someone? Is this not a good time? Somebody's running 7.0 on the treadmill. Is it really a good time to break out in a conversation with this person about, the weather, the cold weather here in Michigan, just as an example? No. And the chances are that person's going to shut you down and you're going to get your feelings hurt. And I think a lot of people actually end up leaving facilities or just whatever, kind of shutting down when stuff like that happens. When the true issue is, and what could have prevented that, it's just to recognize and to master body language. I personally, communicate. I send very strong signals with my body language. I mean, I can't imagine why anyone would go into any fitness facility and look at me and say, wow, she is really friendly. She just really looks like she just wants to chat right now. And I do that on purpose because experience has taught me over the years that me saying nothing and communicating non-verbally is much better than me having to say something to someone, because that's when, particularly if somebody's got issues around rejection, then that's when a person will get their feelings hurt and, oh my gosh, whatever. And so that's why I actually prefer, and I send very strong signals non-verbally, because I truly care about people and just whatever, but at the same time, I've got to be authentic and also communicate that I don't want to be, I don't want to be bothered. I'm not at the gym to be social. Yes, outside of the gym, I'm very social and gregarious and charismatic, but in the gym, you would not get that impression. Anybody who knows me outside of the gym would be shocked to see me inside the gym, because I'm very, very different, because I'm there to focus and I mean business. But I recognize that if I just don't say anything and just really communicate non-verbally, that's much better. I mean, and I could give you a gazillion examples where this happens over and over and over. And I think part of that too is because I'm single, so guys feel like they can just approach me in that manner, and that still doesn't mean I still don't want to be bothered, and I'm still not there, whatever, just to have conversations, and I'm very quick to articulate that if necessary. And I know I shared this with me, and I have, and I'm not always this way, especially at Planet Fitness. I mean, I've really grown in my patience, and my responses are very different, much more empathetic, much more compassionate, and I can definitely say that's an area that I've grown in since being a member of Planet Fitness. But there's been probably a handful of times where I'm very, 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 very respectfully assertive and just communicating that, this happened. This was April, actually, in my home club in Commerce, and this man comes up to me and points to my LSU hat and says, "Are you a fan?" And I thought, and that's probably been like the worst that it's actually happened since I've been at Planet Fitness. And so that's actually very, very minor. But I remember thinking to myself, you know what I mean? And this guy, if you got to be kidding me, anybody who knows me and you see me with all this LSU stuff on and purple shoestrings and a purple LSU water bottle, and all this stuff, and you're looking at me asking me if I'm a fan, but I just said, you know what, sir? I actually don't like to be interrupted when I'm in the gym, but have a wonderful day. And that's actually how I handled that. But outside of Planet Fitness, I assure you my response would have been something very different, because people just don't interrupt people with asinine questions. I mean, just if you're asking people questions that you already know the answer to, just don't do that. But I've got a couple of my all-time favorite approaches. Bally Fitness. This actually happened in 2012 in the late, oh my gosh, I miss Dr. Joseph Stern, retired OBGYN. He passed away in 2014, actually driving on his way to Powerhouse Gym. But I knew him before when we were all at Bally Fitness in Novi. He actually saw me outside and he walked up to me and said, "You know what, young lady, you've got great cardiac function." And so think about that approach. And I know exactly what he meant. And so you got great cardiac function, great cardiac output. I know exactly what he meant, but just think about that approach, versus just some just random approach where you're wasting time. Guys, please don't walk up to a fit woman with if she has any degree of confidence or self-esteem, don't walk up to her and say, you're fit, because it just makes you look, just don't do that. Try not to state the obvious. He's a wonderful example. His approach is certainly something that I highlight as a best practice, actually. Number two, I would have to say, would be Dr. Morris Lieberman. He was actually a retired oncologist and knew him at Powerhouse Gym. But he overheard me, this was 2014, he overheard me speaking to someone, and he came up to me and said, "You know what, young lady, what do? You have great diction." And so see, something other than just some minuscule nonsense made it worthy of the interruption, and so I just always remember him. And if I'm going to tell you about my two best interruptions and approaches, I definitely have to tell you my worst. And I'm sure some of you, if you watch me long enough, you remember I highlighted this. Happened in May of 2017, and this guy, approached me at the gym, and it was a bad time. And he comes in, I'm transitioning from cardio to weights, and I just finished stretching, and it was just a bad time. And he comes up to me and says, "Excuse me, can I talk to you for a minute?" And I looked at him and I said, "No," and just walked off. And and someone actually did tell me somebody that did tell me that I was heartless. So, but that's just being authentic. It was a bad time. I did not want to talk. The man was probably 22 or 23. And I don't have to, I don't want to go through this whole 5-minute explanation of, what, young man, you're too young, and, whatever, just whatever. I spotted the man eyeing me when I was stretching, and this guy is too young, and this is a waste of time. But that's what I'm saying, just be authentic. Of course, at that time, I didn't have the level of patience and compassion and empathy and understanding that I have now as a member of Planet, but that was my reaction. But it was a very authentic reaction. You can't look at me in a gym and think that I want to be bothered. I mean, you just can't. I just do not communicate that in any way whatsoever, and I've developed the ability to do that over the years. And so that's something. Just be real, be who you are, and that's why I'm still almost 25 years in, going very strong. But that's because I do what works for me, and I don't do what doesn't work for me. Yes, I'm very charismatic and gregarious outside of the gym and social situations, but inside of the gym, it would be an absolute nightmare if I was constantly interrupted. I mean, I would have no motivation to go to the gym and be social. And, I have a lot of motivation to go to the gym, work out, and make stuff happen. But I have zero motivation to go and be social and talk to people and this and that. But you just got to be real. Don't do a whole bunch of stuff that you don't want to do, trying to appease people and just trying to make other people. That's a people pleaser. I've been there. I've done that. But I'm real strong in that area when it comes to my fitness. And so you got to do what works for you, folks. And that's just want to wrap up this episode with just those few gym newbie no-nos, because I want you to be successful. But start out on the right foot. Don't give up. Don't sign up and not show up and do those other things that are just going to sabotage your future fitness for success. I want you to be successful, but you yourself have to want to be successful and be willing to do things differently than you have ever done before. And I assure you, a wonderful fitness journey awaits. Folks, next time, I cannot wait to continue this conversation. These are just so much fun. I truly enjoy these. And so until then, folks, remember, I am positively passionate about your success.